Pleased to have with us on the dais for this second session of the afternoon, the Michigan State Spartans. To my immediate left, senior guard Matt McQuaid, the man in the middle, junior guard Cassius Winston, and on my far left, junior forward Nick Ward. This time, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Please state your name and a media affiliation. We have a microphone holder come your way. Left side aisle.
Just for all of you playing a Big Ten team in the NCAA tournament, it's probably not something you guys were necessarily expecting. So how's the prep different, and just how do you guys expect the game to go, considering that it's a team that you're more familiar with?
We're going to start with Nick and work our way to Matt.
Well, to be honest, we played them earlier this year, so we do know a little bit about them. And, of course, they're a Big Ten team, so it'll be a little bit of a challenge. So we just got to come out and play hard.
Yeah, like Nick said, we played them before, so we probably know their tendencies a little bit better. They probably know ours a little bit better. So, it's not going to come down to the X's and the O's. It's going to come down to which team plays the hardest, which team executes the best.
Yeah, we both know each other pretty good, and playing each other earlier in the season. They're a different team now. They're playing really good, and we just got to be ready.
Questions, please raise your hand. Far right side, second row.
Hey, Nick, Jim Combroni, SpartanMag.com. Just asking, curious how your conditioning, how do you feel it's coming along? Do you feel like you're making progress, firstly? Secondly, how are you doing in terms of catching entry passes? Has that part been an adjustment in your recovery?
My condition has come along, has made great strides. Last week wasn't the best, but this week I feel, I'm starting to feel normal again. As far as, catching the ball and stuff like that, it is a little bit of a challenge, but it's something I got to get used to. Catching harder entry passes was, my thing for a while. But, since it's on my left hand, it has made it a little bit challenging, but it's something I have to just get used to.
Back to the left side.
Nick, for you personally, and also for Kenny and X, going up against Jordan Murphy and Daniel Turo, how do you guys kind of think you match up against their bigs, and what do you kind of expect from that matchup?
Well, their bigs are, very talented, and rebound and work hard. That's something that we all do, and we just got to know their tendencies at the end of the day and box out. That's a big part of our game plan, and in order for us to win, we're going to have to contain them on the boards and, contain them as best as we can.
Question for Matt and Cassius. Amir Coffey has been playing more of the point over the last few games since you guys have played each other, and he's put together a string of games where he's really sort of put the team on his back and carried Minnesota to the tournament. Just from a defensive standpoint, how do you make adjustments on a guy who has suddenly gotten hot or has become a lot more successful at or finding his game?
Start with Cassius and Matt.
I think this is a better question for Matt and those guys, the stoppers. Like I said, he's been playing really, really well and doing a lot for that team. You just got to watch enough film, watch his tendencies, and just try to make it as uncomfortable as possible for him. He's a good player, so he's going to make things happen. But if you put him in uncomfortable situations the whole game, you got a better chance.
Yeah, like you said, he's a big reason why they're playing so good right now. The film and just trusting the coach's game plan and going out there and executing it is probably just the main thing on stopping a really good player like that, and just trusting each other, too, on the court and having each other's back.
Jack Ebling, Spotlight Radio Network and Fox 47. Cassius, your coach yesterday was praising your leadership more than your play, saying that it was as well as you've ever led. Can you talk about being able to hold players accountable and yet be a buffer between the player and your coach?
I just grown a lot in that area. being more comfortable, being vocal. And like I said, my teammates, they trust me, so I wouldn't steer them the wrong way. It took a while just to gain their trust and things like that. So I wouldn't steer my teammates the wrong way. And also, Coach trusts me too, so he trusts me to give him that message and things like that.
Left side aisle.
You probably at least heard some of the reaction that Coach got nationally for the moment yesterday on the floor with his passion, I guess, coming out. But everybody really who plays for him comes out and just says that he's one of the best leaders that you could possibly have. I guess maybe to whoever wants to just explain to us why Coach Izzo's style just really works for you as a basketball player as you try to lead and grow in yourself.
Start off at the far end.
Well, Coach wants the best for you. Him yelling at Henny yesterday was just a sign that he just wants the best for you, and he wants to push you to be the best player that you can be on and off the court. That's something that we harp on in this program, and that's something that we build around. Just making players into young men.
Coach is just he's filled with passion and emotion and love. Those are the main things that make him as great as he is. So, when he's getting after you or when he's yelling, it's never out of harm. It's never out of hate. It's literally just him wanting the best for you and him challenging you and him pushing you to be the best that you can be. And it's worked for years and years and years. And he's a great coach and even a better person. You know what I'm saying? So him yelling, he's the first one to yell, and he'll be the first one to cry when something bad or good happens. So it's all emotion. It's all him just caring for you.
Yeah, like they said, it's just all out of love. And you just feel that when you get here and when you talk to him, he's just got a passion that's crazy for this game. And, we all have the same goal, and that was just to win the game yesterday. And, you could feel that in the huddle. We just wanted to win.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Kevin Flanagan, Twitter at What Up, Kev. Hey, guys. Question for all three of you guys. Cassius, you spoke yesterday about needing to settle into the tournament, the confidence and the nerves and everything that comes along with this tournament. Maybe all you guys talk about where are you now compared to where you were 26 hours ago? Nerves-wise, what's the vibe with the team?
Start with Nick, work our way to Matt.
I feel like, this isn't our first rodeo. We know what to expect, and we're experienced guys. We got 2 juniors and a senior up here. So I feel like our mindset was just to win the game yesterday. And, that's the whole, mindset of the tournament is to survive in advance.
Like I said, the first game's always going to be difficult. Just the rhythm of it, the pace of it, the referees, all type of stuff you got to adjust to. I feel like now we got that out the way. We could just focus on basketball, just focus on winning the game, focus on our opponent at hand.
Yeah, we just had to take it one game at a time. And, of course, the first one, just getting to feel like Cassius said, for everything is important. And now we just got to get ready for a good Minnesota team.
Any other questions for our student athletes before we dismiss them? Okay, thanks, gentlemen. Best of luck tomorrow. Michigan State locker room is still open for another 20 minutes.
She is. She is.
I'd like to welcome to the dais head coach of the Michigan State Spartans, Tom Izzo. This is the 7th trip in the last 8 years for Michigan State in the second round. This time we're taking an opening statement from Coach Izzo. Thank you.
Well, we are excited to be here. You know, I don't know if I'm as excited to play another Big Ten team. We just done that for 20 games, and then we just did it for 3 in the Big Ten tournament. But it's the way the schedule is, and I think everybody asked me, is it easier to prepare for a team? We are 2 completely different teams than we were a month and a half ago, you know. We didn't have Kenny Goins in that game. We did have Kyle Arns. We had Nick Ward full go, and he played very well. On the other side of the coin, Coffey wasn't even a shadow of the player he is right now. And Kelcher is playing much, much better. And Murphy, I think, and Atulu are playing better. So we're different teams. We've only played once. It was a long time ago. And the prep feels brand new. But I'm proud of where we are. I'm excited for Richard because he went through hell there in the early part of the Big Ten season with some injuries of his own, and he got that team back playing, and they're playing as good as anybody in the league, and that was proven in the Big Ten tournament.
First question on the left side, second aisle.
Hondo Carpenter with Spartan Nation. Tom, you have long said since you started you wanted to build the program and earn respect. Richard Pitino just said that every time he's coached against you, he's learned something, and there's no coach in America he has more respect for. Your program has it, but so do you. As an elder statesman in the game, are you able to appreciate that appreciation and that respect?
What a kind way of saying, you old man, elder statesman. That's pretty good. I got to remember that. But, you know, Richard, I mean, I'm the same boat. You know, I remember going against his dad and learning things from him. But I have watched his career because it's not easy to do what he did at his age and kind of go through the tough times of the job, but he survived them. And I think that's the greatest part. You know, he's not only survived them, but he's got his team playing the best that's playing. I mean, who doesn't love a kid like Murphy? If you're me, you definitely love him because he can rebound with anybody in the world. He set some records. He's a tough kid and yet a humble kid. I recruited Coffey. I know how good he is. Unfortunately for us, he might be playing at the best level, but it's great to go against people that you know, players that you admire, and a young coach who's coming into it and setting the standards as he's set, coming off the canvas like they did early on when they struggled a little bit and playing their best basketball. So hats off to him too.
Questions for the coach? Left side aisle in the red.
Given the makeup of Minnesota's roster, why has Gabe Kalsher, even as a freshman, developed into such a matchup problem for a lot of teams?
Well, because, you know, it's hard. Who do you guard him with? I mean, you got to guard. Coffey's become a point forward, you know, and Coffey and McBride are, I think if there's one thing that's changed on this team, they're getting into that paint a lot. And they're so big they can see over people. You know, it's 6'7", 6'5". They're athletic. They're long. They shoot it good enough, but they can get into that paint and look over people. And then if you get into the paint, you got to help it all. You know, they've got 2 true Big Ten big men that are rebounding the ball, are physical down there. So I just think in general, Kalsher, he's a recipient of, if you double down on him, the kickouts, he's a spot-up shooter. If you penetrate and somebody helps, those big guards are big enough to find him. He moves pretty well without the ball. And, you know, I watched him in AAU tournaments, and the kid can flat out shoot it. And, you know, he had 17 against us the first time. But, you know, you can just see, I mean, everybody's becoming better because those freshmen become sophomores at this time.
Left side standing up.
As a member of the Minnesota media, I know that you were real close with the late Flip Saunders, and I know that you've had some talks with Ryan as he's gone through a tough year. Are you speaking to him somewhat, and are they late night conversations like you had with Flip?
Well, not as late as Flip. You know, he was used to watch those, was that QVC or OVC or whatever it was, you know. I think he bought cheap watches and cheap coats there. But Flip was a special guy, and I got to know Ryan early on. I got to know him when he, you know, through Flip, and then when he played at Minnesota. And I'm just so impressed with what Ryan's done, you know. I talked to him the day that he was being offered the job. I was up in Minnesota, you know, earlier in the year. We scrimmaged Gonzaga and spent some time with him over at the hotel. And, you know, it's a sad deal, a really sad deal, because not only one of the great coaches in the profession, but one of the great guys. And I remember going up there for the funeral, and the coaches that flew in, you know, Popovich, Doc Rivers, you know, they had games that night, and they flew up, and it was, God, that's respect beyond respect. And with Ryan, you know, I watched the first night when he won that game and got his little shower and everything. And I told him, I said, you know, how was that? He said, well, God, you know, he goes, I had my suit on. I said, trust me, enjoy it. Hope it happens a lot, because it never happens enough. But he's doing a great job. It's not easy to do what he did. And yet I see that team. I read some of the comments of some of those players. And, you know, if he can hang on, I think he's going to be a star in that league before he's done. Really do.
Left side aisle on the blue.
Daniel House, gopherhole.com. What are some of the challenges associated with defending someone like Jordan Murphy, and how big of a challenge has he been over the years?
Oh, God, he's a rebounding machine, you know, and I love rebounders. I mean, every time we play him, at the end of the game, you know, I guess I secretively would be trying to get him to transfer immediately, you know, because I love the kid. He's humble, he's got no ego, he doesn't talk it, he just does it. And who doesn't love a kid that's like that? What he's done a better job of, he's putting the ball on the floor a lot better. He used to be able to shoot the ball over his left shoulder. Now he can go off both shoulders. He was a right-hander that shot it over his right shoulder, which was weird. I think he's developing, and his game is just, and I think Richard and he both deserve credit for that. But he is a lot different, and I think a better player than the one we faced a month and a half, 2 months ago, whenever it was.
Left side aisle in the red jacket.
I know there was a lot not to like yesterday, but in terms of, you know, it was a win and you're moving on. So what did you like in terms of items or moments or observations that you saw that can help the team however far the rest of this tournament run goes?
Well, I like the way that we sucked it up, you know. I mean, it was a tough week, you know, with the 3 games and the travel, and I mean, a lot of people have to do something like this, but it was hard. I think Kenny Goins, you know, he played like 39, 40 minutes in those games in Chicago, and had to play a ton of minutes last night, and I thought struggled a little bit. But I thought Cassius is feeling better, the toes better, the knees better. Still got fatigued a little bit, but I think health-wise, he's better. And Xavier came on. I think a big key for us right now, because we need a lift, is getting Nick back. You know, Nick came back when he probably wasn't ready to come back. It wasn't anything that was going to damage his hand. I just mean physically ready and conditioning. You know, he got the approval to go, and it was like play. And Nick's played very well against Minnesota, and I was hoping to get him a few more minutes last night. But, you know, when you play those smaller teams, they got guys that can pick and pop and shoot threes or put the ball on the floor. Now we're getting back into more traditional teams, and so I'm hoping to get Nick in there more and get a real rotation so Kenny and X get a little more rest. On the perimeter, we are what we are, but there might even be some times we could move Kenny around to different positions, and so we'll see. But, you know, I like the competitiveness. I like the fact that we dealt with some adversity and handled it. I like the fact that Cassius really took over the game again like a good point guard should. McQuaid, again, hit a couple big shots. Aaron Henry made the big post move and a couple of free throws. And I had to love the fact that you go 26 for 27 or 25 for whatever we did from the free throw line. It was a couple years ago, and we were a disaster. So I think our coaches and our players deserve a lot of credit. They've worked on it. They made all their free throws. And Kenny apologized to him for missing that one, you know, and didn't bother me any.
We have 6 minutes left in the session. We have 2 questions on the left side here.
Casey Harrison, State News. Tom, you talked about Kenny playing a lot of minutes. I believe he's 4 for the last 18 from 3 over his last 3 games. He said yesterday that his shot felt flat. What are you seeing from maybe a fatigue standpoint or mechanically about his shot?
You know, I think there's 2 things. A little bit when your shot is a little flat, means you're not getting enough lift with your legs. But I also think people are playing them different. And without Nick in there, you know, you can afford to press up a little bit more in the perimeter because you don't have to worry as much down low. So, you know, a combination of things. But, you know, Kenny still found a way to get 9 rebounds and do some things. But, you know, that stretch 4 and what he did was one of the reasons we won the Big Ten and the Big Ten tournament. But I think, you know, I think just being here a day and getting through that first game, last night's walkthrough, today's walkthrough, there's a little bit more of a freshness to this team. And I think we'll be ready to go. You know, we're going to have to be because they're playing their best basketball of the season.
Left side aisle, and then we'll go in the back and come back up to the front.
Tom, you've always talked about a player-coach team being better than a coach-coach team. What does it do for you when Cassius can be a buffer for you and also convey your message with different decibels, especially to the young guys who haven't been through this before?
You know, Cassius has grown a lot. You know, I always kid him because his freshman year wasn't a walk in the park or all roses either, you know. But whose was? You know, I mean, it's amazing the number of calls you get at this time of year from former players and everybody. You know, freshmen, that's why you're called a freshman, you know. You don't know anything and you have no idea what it takes to win because you've never been at this level. And so I have always believed that leadership, and I think McQuaid and Cassius have done a phenomenal job. Cassius it's an area, my whole thing with him is let's take everything to another level. You know, let's take your defense to another level, your leadership to another level. And he just keeps answering the bell, you know. And so I'm, you know, I get proud of people when I see a change, and especially in a change in an area that maybe, as a lot of people say, well, that's his personality. Well, I've always said you got to change your personality too if you want to be a great or elite player, and I think Cassius is really working on that, and so I'm proud of him for that. You know, he came in to a huddle one time when he made some mistakes. A couple of turnovers, and that 7-8 point lead went down to a -1 for us. And you know, when people take blame, that is such a beautiful thing nowadays. And he's just turning into a good leader, a great player, and able to do some things because he is the even-keeled guy on my team. You know, there's nobody like Cassius, and he's learning how to use that to his advantage.
See Minneapolis. Just your thoughts on the Big Ten going 6-0 so far in March Madness. What does that say about the conference and the toughness of it this year?
It's one of the rare times in my whole life that I ever pull for my in-state rival a little bit. You know, I mean, I have to do it because I don't think the Big Ten sometimes gets the respect it deserves. You know, I said all year that I thought ours was the best conference, top to bottom. And you can argue that a million different ways, and there's no way to prove it. But one way to prove it is to just keep winning. And when I see all those Big Ten teams win, and I just watched Iowa a little bit before I came here, and, you know, I had my Hawkeye jersey on. You know, I was, especially when you've been in the league as long as I have, and I guess I'm the guy that's been here the most years, so it's not only part of my job, part of my obligation, but I do feel my school is Michigan State, but I have a sense of ownership for the Big Ten too, and I think it's been great. That's the only part that's disappointing, that we got to face each other in the second weekend, at least us in Minnesota do. But I just hope the league keeps winning.
Question on the left, standing up. There you go.
Tom, I know you've talked about how Minnesota is different than the first time you played them. What about you guys? You were coming off a losing streak and busted out against them a little bit. How different is your team now since then?
Well, it is different. You know, Kenny's back, and he wasn't there but for a couple minutes of that game. But Kyle's not there, and he played in that game. And maybe the biggest difference was I think Nick had 22 or 20 points, and Nick is pretty good defensively, especially on a good post player. Now, I think like a guy like Murphy or Turu are both better at putting the ball on the floor than they were early. So we're both different. If they shoot the ball like they did yesterday, that makes them a lot different than they've been all year. You know, they've been a low 30s shooting team from the three, and they're just shooting the ball better right now, or at least did yesterday. So, like all of us, everybody's a little inconsistent. You know, they played so well a couple of games, and they played a game or two that they weren't as good in, and we've done the same thing. So I thought it was a big win for him yesterday. I thought, I know how good Louisville is. We played against them, and I thought pretty much Minnesota dominated them, you know, definitely over half the game.
Our final question right here on the left aisle.
I was in between you and Bob yesterday when you guys were talking about the exchange with Henry. Were you surprised at all by the national reaction? I guess those of us who are around the program more often were, I guess, a little less surprised by what happened.
You know, it's funny. You know, I learned in the last couple of years about sound bites, and one word makes a difference. You know, there's a 10-second sound bite in a 2-year relationship, and I just think that people don't understand that coaches, at least this coach, relies on relationships with his players. I think more than any coach in the country. Now, that's a egotistical or a selfish statement or self-proclaimed, but I think it's been earned and it's been talked about. And the number of players that called me last night that had already called Aaron, and Aaron, that thing was, I won't say it was nothing, it was nothing. But the 10 seconds, you know, you got to appreciate that there's a year and a half of recruiting. There's a year that he's been there now. There's hours and hours and hours are spent on what do you want to accomplish? What do you need to do to accomplish that? What do you need to do to help our team win? And if you don't do those things, what do you think my job is? So a little bit surprised. This day and age doesn't, to me it was ridiculous, the way it blew up. I just would publicly thank the many people that just saw it as ridiculous, how people reacted. But it's not have nothing to do with anything with me, with Aaron. I was thinking of benching him, but I decided I'm going to start him anyway, and we're going to move on. And he's a great kid that has improved so much. But for us to be a championship team, for us to move on, he's got to continue to improve even more. He understands that. I understand that. My players understand that. I hate to say it. That's all that really matters to me.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Coach. Best of luck tomorrow.